Jason La Conforta, La Canfora, excuse me, of the Washington Post had this to say about Woody Johnson contemplating potential changes. Here's what a high ranking official had to say about the situation. This is killing owner Woody Johnson. Trust me, I know him well. All that booing is driving him crazy. He already wasn't really sold on this coach. He was going to want LaFleur out and some changes to the staff. He can't help himself. Weren't they 6-3 at the bye? And now they're getting booed out of their own stadium at Christmas. I'm telling you, something is going to happen there. By the way, there was Clint Neal on Twitter tweeted at Connor Hughes and Zach Blatt, who they both cover the team. Connor Hughes for SNY, Zach Blatt for The Athletic. He tweets, any truth behind this Woody Johnson not liking Salah rumor? Hughes says 0. And then Zach follows it up with, now, if you were asking if it's true that I don't like Connor, you might get a different answer, which is really funny. They have a nice little banter back and forth. But this idea or this notion that this guy, Jason La Conforta, knows anything about this is it's all speculation. It's all hearsay. It drives me nuts with this rumor. And yes, there's a big, I know the comments are going to be coming, well, there's a big game on Sunday. Shouldn't you be talking about that? Yeah, we're going to get into that, believe me. But I saw this floating around on the internet. I saw Ryan from Jets Talk 24/7 do a video on it. And I don't put any stock into it at all based on everything we've seen from this team over the last decade to finally have some sense of stability that they just really need to figure out the quarterback position and the rest of the roster and the coach and the GM. They feel like they have something good here. To pull the plug on that seems incredibly silly. Now, if this was maybe a few years ago where they had the different reporting structure where both the coach and the GM reported upwards to the owner, then maybe I'd be slightly more concerned. But to Woody Johnson's credit, I think ever since he's come back, he's kind of stayed out of it, the football stuff for the most part. He really has. He's let Joe Douglas do his thing. He's let Robert Saleh do his thing. And I'm sorry, I just don't buy that this guy from the Washington Post has any insight onto what is actually going on in the building at One Jets Drive. I don't believe it for a second. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm naive. Maybe I'm the silly one for, not looking into this too much or glossing over this, but I don't buy it. I'm sorry. I really don't. With the number of awful coaches that they've been through and awful situations and then just the turnover, and to finally have something that you feel relatively confident in, I think it'd be so silly if they actually pulled the plug on it. I don't think they do. And again, they haven't been perfect. They obviously at 7-8, they have work to do, and there's still an outside prayer for a playoff spot. And I get all that, but everyone cries about this team never having any sort of stability and that there's too much roster turnover and there's too much turnover in general. That would be a prime example of it if Woody Johnson pulled the plug. And I don't buy for a second that this is going to happen. So I just wanted to get my brief thoughts on that out there. It's very, as I said, it's very, very silly. I don't put any validity into it. I don't put any stock into it. This guy seems to have an agenda, supposedly doesn't really like Woody Johnson for who he worked for, the being the ambassador to England during the last presidency. He ranked Robert Saleh the worst head coach of the 2021 coaching cycle. So there is obviously there seems to be some sort of bias. Again, I'm not really putting much stock into it. So